This is very much seizing the moment, taking a crisis, a problem in America, and using it to advance causes completely unrelated to COVID, spending money that hasn't been vetted, spending money that has nothing to do with COVID because they can. And the only thing I can tell you about spending money, count me in for helping people get back on their feet. I've always been for a direct payment. Count me out for a $1.9 trillion spend fest unrelated to COVID in a partisan fashion. This is everything President Biden said he wouldn't do. The inaugural speech rings hollow when it comes to this provision, the $1.9 trillion COVID package. Everything President Biden said he wanted to do for the country, he abandoned. And it's not like there's plenty of Republicans that would sit down and work with our Democratic friends to do another round of COVID relief, but it's got to be related to COVID, and we want to spend the money we've appropriated in the past first. Maybe that's an odd concept in Washington, but I'll make a bet. Most Americans find it odd that we would appropriate money for a problem and we haven't spent the money we've already appropriated in the past. We'd get that out the door to see what needs to be done in the future. I think most Americans believe now is not the time to load a bill up with a bunch of stuff unrelated to COVID because we need every dollar to hit the mark. But we'll have a chance to talk about that in the coming months, and there'll be another election coming before you know it. And the only thing I can leave with the American people here is that they have it all in terms of power. This is what they've chosen to do. They've chosen a partisan path, rejecting the bipartisan path. They've chosen to put most of the money in the bill for things unrelated to COVID simply because they can. And the last election was about what would happen to our country if Democrats got in charge of everything. Many of us on our side said it'd be one of the most liberal agendas in the history of American politics, would come forth pretty quickly. I had no idea it would come forward this quickly. I had no idea that they would abandon a bipartisan approach to COVID because it seems to be the one area that we've had success regarding working together. So during the campaign, I said there'd be two areas I thought we could do bipartisan legislation. One was COVID, the other is infrastructure. Boy, was I wrong about COVID. So I'm hoping that the American people pay some attention to this debate. We're going to have some really good amendments on our side talking about how we would spend the money differently and why we would choose not to spend some money in this bill because it simply has nothing to do with COVID. The American people have suffered during the COVID pandemic. There are better days ahead. I want to do as much as we can for vaccinations and helping people get back into school. And I'm willing to help people struggling out there. But you shouldn't be giving a $1,400 check to people that made $200,000 as a couple. They've changed that. They've taken the Silicon Valley Railway out. They've taken the bridge out because they had to, not because they wanted to. So we're going to have a lot of amendments that will show what we would do with your money versus what they would do with your money. We're going to have a lot of amendments that would show what we would do with COVID and how to fight COVID versus what they would do with COVID. And that's what democracy is all about, working together when you can and showing differences when you must. So there are going to be a lot of differences in this debate, and I think this will not be the last time you hear about this bill. I think this bill is going to resonate for months and years to come in all the wrong ways. With that, I'll yield the floor, Ms. President. Note the absence of a quorum.